Hey, what's up you guys, it's UBFire bringing you guys another Genshin Impact video, and today we're going to be taking a look at which 4-star spear is better on Zhao. So let's just get right into that. Alright, so as you can see right here, my lovely Zhao. He is so fun to play, by the way. So the spears that I am going to be testing him on with is going to be the Royal Spear, the Deathmatch Spear, and the Blackcliff pole. So right off the bat, you know what, let's just start comparing the base attack. So the Royal Spear is going to be having 565 base attack, while the Deathmatch has a 454, making the Royal Spear the biggest base attack out of all of the spears here. Next up, of course, is going to be the primary stat. Now for the Blackcliff pole, it is going to be crit damage, bringing you 55.1% critical damage here. And then for the Deathmatch, it's going to bring you 36.8% crit. And for the Royal Spear, it's going to bring you 27.6% attack. So all in all of these spears have a good primary stat. It is very good. It brings a lot to the table. But of course, what really separates these weapons is the weapon effect. Now, let's just go ahead and take a look at the Blackcliff pole. So what the Blackcliff pole does is that after defeating an enemy, the attack percent is increased by 12% for 30 seconds, and this can be stacked up to 3 times. So because it can be stacked up to 3 times, it can basically total up to 36%, making it more attack percentage than the actual Royal Spear itself. But of course, there is a catch to that. It is only after you defeat an enemy. And to go along with that, in order to even get this effect as well, you have to kill the enemy with that character. So let's say if I had Zhao on the team, and then I have Beidou on, I switch out to my Beidou and I kill the Hilichurl with my Beidou instead of my Zhao, this weapon effect is not going to take place. It's not. So you have to kill the Hilichurl with this weapon, with that character who's using it, in order for you to be able to get this weapon effect. As to compared to the Royal Spear, upon damaging an opponent, it increases the critical rate by 8%, and it also has a max of 5 stacks. And whenever you do crits, it removes all of those stacks. And going on to the Deathmatch, with the weapon effect, it says if there are at least 2 opponents nearby, the attack is increased by 16% and the defense is increased by 16%. But if there is less than 2 enemies nearby, the attack is increased by 24%. And let me just say, honestly, just looking at this weapon compared to the Royal Spear, I'm gonna just say this straight up. The Deathmatch just basically kicks the Royal Spear out of the competition. Let's say you are just facing one opponent. Take a look at how much attack it is going to increase your attack by. It's 24% attack, and if you take a look at the Royal Spear, the attack is 27. So that's only a 3% difference right there between the Royal Spear and the Deathmatch. And not only that, the Deathmatch will bring you permanent buff. It's a permanent buff. No matter if you are traveling the world, or as long as you have the spear on him, he will always have a 16% buff plus a 16% defense buff as well. So that is really goddamn good. But of course, with the Deathmatch, there's no downside to it if there's an upside. And the downside is with its low base attack. Like, it is so low. You can see that it has only 400, while the other two are all the way up in the 500, and that is huge for the difference there. But of course, each of these weapons are good on its own in different situations. But you know what, enough stalling. I'm just gonna say this: the Deathmatch, in my personal opinion, is the best for Zhao. All right, it's good. It's just the best. I like it. I use it on him. The Deathmatch is just so good, providing you with a permanent buff, as well as, having your critical rate up, which is very, very important, by the way. It's so good on Zhao. But of course, each of these weapons have their own type of play style. It depends on what you want to play around. So for example, the Royal Spear. The Royal Spear is an overall good balanced sword, right? It's not, it doesn't do too much damage, but at the same time, it doesn't do too little damage. It's right there in the middle, right in between. As for the real matchup, for the real fight between, is going to be the Blackcliff pole as well as the Deathmatch. Now, the reason why this is the real match is definitely going to be the critical damage versus the critical rate. And in terms of the weapon effect, the Deathmatch is a lot more better. It's a permanent buff. It will never go away. As for the Blackcliff pole, this is very, very situational. So if you have to fight a boss, like let's say Dvalin, or even a, ice boss, cube boss, then this will most likely not take effect. It only triggers when you are defeating an enemy. It's not really ideal in most situations. But like I said before, the real battle is definitely going to be the main stat, which both of these weapons provide, the critical rate or the critical damage. Now, if you take a look at the critical rate on the Deathmatch, it brings 36%. And if you take a look at the artifact headpiece, a plus 20 5-star critical rate headpiece only brings you 31.1. So this weapon, the Deathmatch, is bringing more than a plus 20 headpiece. That is just insane. As to compare to the critical damage, it brings 62, and for the Blackcliff, it only brings 55.1. So you can see already just how good of a weapon the Deathmatch really is. Now, of course, there is a huge problem with this weapon. It is a pay-to-win weapon. Not really. It's a 4-star. But what I mean by that is that you can't have access to this weapon unless you get the battle pass. So without the battle pass unlocked, you won't be able to get any of the weapons that it is provided here. The Black Sword, the Serpent Spine, the Solar Pearl, any of these weapons you cannot get unless you pay real money. So for you free-to-plays, the Deathmatch isn't really an option here. So if it was a choice between whether the Blackcliff pole or the Royal Spear, then I would most likely go with the Blackcliff pole. Of course, you can take in account of the Favonius Lance, the Energy Recharge, Dragon's Bane, any of those other ones, but I honestly feel like these are the top 3 main spears that are meant to be fit for Zhao. So between the two weapons for Zhao, I feel like the Blackcliff pole just fits him better just because of the way how he plays and the way how his ultimate works as well. So basically, to summarize everything all into one little section, the Deathmatch is the best spear for Zhao. Permanent buff, critical rate, it brings a lot to the table. And if you are a free-to-play and you can't have access to this Deathmatch, I really recommend the Blackcliff pole because you still are going to do a lot of damage here. But because you do bring a lot of critical damage, I really do suggest you to bring, in terms of the artifact sets, have a lot of critical rate as a substat. And for the headpiece, you still want it to be crit damage because that's just the best for Zhao. It really is. Zhao levels up with critical rate, so you're gonna have a pretty high critical rate even though you don't have that much crit rate on your character. For example, if you take a look at my artifacts, right, the only artifact that I have a lot of crit rate on is my flower, 13.6. If you take a look at my my feather, barely any crit rate, 3.1. This one, barely any crit rate, 3.1. This one, 3.1 again. And this one, 3.1. So you can just see how bad my critical rate is on my artifacts. The only good artifact crit rate is my flower. And let's say we switch to the Blackcliff pole, right? Switch over, take a look at my stats here. I still have 50% on Zhao. That is correct. 50% on him. And you have a critical damage of 200%. So in terms of, for Zhao and a free-to-play stance, the Blackcliff pole is a lot more better than the Royal Spear. But if you guys are curious about my talents or my Zhao just in general, these are my talents for him. 6, 6, and 8, my Constellation, C0. artifacts. So let's start off with my flower, my feather right here, hourglass, my cup. Oh, just take a look at this. I got so lucky. And then for my crown, there you go. And with the Deathmatch spear, these are going to be my attributes. Anyways guys, in order to end this video, let's just go ahead and play a clip of me using all 3 weapons and showcasing them off to you guys, seeing how each of these weapons are doing. But anyways guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and as you guys saw in the clip, you can see that the middle one, which was the Blackcliff, it did a lot more damage, but the consistency wasn't there as compared to the first one, so that is why I decided to use the Deathmatch, plus the permanent buff is really nice too. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you guys could hit that subscribe, hit that bell notification, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!